to us, we are going to do things to you that have never been done before.
We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver. The government is the car. And we decide where it should go and by what route to do. We the people are free. And I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited.
Well, g'day, folks. How are you? I hope your day has progressed pretty well. If you were around for the early morning show this morning, you probably got absolutely no worthwhile information out of it whatsoever, other than the news of the loss of Black Sheep's father early this morning. He passed away comfortably, I think, in his sleep at the time. For those, I'm not sure that Black Sheep's in the chat tonight, but for those interested, he's doing okay. You know, this wasn't something that was completely unexpected. And while it's never easy when someone passes, if anybody is prepared for such a thing, then I think it's safe to say that Paul is certainly that someone. So our thoughts are with him during this time. And I know many of you have reached out in various different ways to him. Including Rachel, who I personally want to thank for what she's doing. There are a few other bits and pieces going on in the background, which we might get to one day, but now isn't the time in that regard. We've got winners, folks. We have drawn our winners for draw number 5. Now, when I say we've drawn, the computer gets to draw these winners, and it does so automatically. What it also automatically does is send out an email saying, hey, congratulations, you've won $750. Unfortunately, it sent that email out to 2 people. And, of course, we've only got one prize of $750 to give away and one prize of a gram of gold bullion from Ainslie Bullion, but thanks to one of the wonderful family here. And I hold that in my hot little hand. Here is that gram right there. Now, I'm not sure how or which way the machine advises people of who was drawn, but we can tell which name was drawn first and which name was drawn second. And in keeping with the order of things as we've promoted it, first and second prize. First prize would be a $750 cash prize, which we'll put into your account, and the second prize will be that 1 gram of gold bullion in my hot little hand. So the winners, who I'm not sure I have permission to give out full names of, so I'm going to say M has won $750, and K, M I think is from Victoria, and K from West Tasmania has picked up the gold bullion, which today managed to rise again in price, and it's busted through $5,200 again, the spot price for gold. The spot price for silver today, I did tell you that it was going to go back below $60, and it did, and it dropped down, I think, as low today as $59.47, but right now, once again, sitting right on the cusp of $60 at $59.92 at ainslebullion.com.au. I would urge you as a friend to highly consider investing in a bit of silver right now, because as I saw one of you mentioned here, oh, what the? Good to see that you're up and about, brother, and typing, or at least dictating in full voice. BYD, the biggest car company in the world, that's the electrical kind, have developed a similar battery to the one Samsung have come up with, which is a solid-state battery. This has changed battery technology, if you're not aware of it yet. And for a car, it's going to require up to 1 kilo of silver, probably require a little bit more. Now, the performance of these batteries will ensure, as he says, that they become the battery of choice for any electric vehicle going forward. Their ability to recharge, their speed in recharge, and their endurance is quite outstanding compared to anything else that's on the market. This is going to have a large impact on the price of silver. So I would urge you, ainslieBullion.com.au, use my name or the Voice of Freedom in the notes section if you're buying online, and you'll get a little discount. If you're going into their Gold Coast, their Brisbane or their Melbourne stores, just say hi from me and just tell them that you want that discount, and it will happen for you. There aren't too many places in the world that will give you a discount, particularly at the moment with the way prices are going. And I would expect it to bust through silver again. I would expect it to bust through $60 before the end of the week. Whether it stays that high over the weekend, well, that might depend on what sort of happens with this news. You're just full of it. You must be sitting down in hospital there or just recovering and doing an awful lot of research, pal. The USGS has listed silver on the draft list of critical minerals. Now, this is a significant list. It places all sorts of new laws regarding who can have it, how much of it you can have, where you can get it from, and all that sort of stuff as a critical infrastructure tool in America. That means pulling it out of the ground. If you are a silver miner, they're going to take a lot more notice of you, and as they should, because at the moment there is a bit of a difference between the demand for silver, as outlined particularly from China. Manufacturers like BYD are a Chinese company, but China's also filling what amounts to be the size of Victoria plus a small portion of New South Wales, an area of that size. They're planning on covering in solar so that they can insulate the country from power crises using solar. And to do that, they've got to make a lot more solar panels. That requires a lot more silver, and their forward estimates in silver, what requirements versus the global estimates on silver production do not add up. There is a huge discrepancy. So keep an eye out, watch this space. Carl, did I hear about the Lima Agreement being torn up? Well, Deb, interesting you should say that. Was having a discussion today with somebody about not so much the Lima Agreement, and no, I didn't realize it had been torn up. I'd love to see some evidence, like where you've seen that from. However, now that you say that, it does ring with something else that, like I say, I was talking about earlier today, and that had to do with an interesting state of affairs in America and passports. Now, it is possible, and I'm not going to go deeply into this because I don't know all the details, and I'm probably going to quote things incorrectly if I start doing it here and now. But suffice to say, it is possible to apply through American Homeland Security for a new kind of state passport. Now, this has to do with the Union of the States, not the United States. And there are two very different things there. Now, part of this conversation also extended to Washington, D.C., the Australian government, the ownership by Washington, D.C. and the registered companies, the foreign-owned companies that are now claiming to be duly elected Australian leaders. They're not. They're just the heads of foreign-owned companies that happen to be registered in Washington, D.C. for tax purposes and amongst other things. So it got me thinking about, well, if we're registered for those sorts of things, I wonder if a letter to the Department of Homeland Security with all of your appropriate numbers, and you do require quite a few appropriate numbers, some of which can be difficult to find unless you know how. I wonder whether or not we too might be able to apply for a state passport. I say state with inverted commas, but yeah, that. So watch this space. We'll have a little bit more to speak on regarding that. As for our winner, Kay in West Tasmania, as soon as Vincenzo supplies me with your address, oh God, I can't get it to show the gold. There you go. I will be putting this in something that is very, very secure and sending it in the most secure fashion to you so that you can add it to your stash, or if you don't have one, you can begin it, or I don't know, do whatever you like with it. It's yours. And I hope it stays with you until it is valued at a great deal more than it is now. In fact, what I'm going to try and do is see what one of them is actually worth, because it's interesting. It's usually around about $200. And yep, right now, $195. There you go. So valued at $195 today. Not bad for a second prize. Now, draw number 6 has commenced, and I think we've sold about 10 tickets. So look at that, only 740 to go. We are offering 2 prizes up for this one, and Vince will change the outgoing email. I think 82 tickets, but it's just updated, have been sold. So Vince will change the outgoing email so that there is no confusion. The computer will automatically send the first name drawn the first prize of $750, and the second email will go to somebody to say, you haven't won a gram of gold. We apologize. Instead, what we will send you is the Voice of Freedom Byron Bob pack, containing 10 1/10 coins, or not coins, I beg your pardon, they're rounds, and commonly known as the Byron Bob. If I can get them a bit closer. No, I can't. It'll phase out. But I'm sure you've seen them before. You know what they look like. This is one of the ones that is unfinished. You can see the name isn't, well, I suppose to put it in a nice way, coloured in. Vince has been working on other finished articles. That's one with the name done, but I actually coloured that one in. And if you look real closely, there's a lot of spilled ink, so to speak. So that one's staying with me. This one might go to one of you. But Vince has been slaving away on his 3D printer to knock out a few more of these, because we have had a number of people ask for them. Quite chuffed. And a number of people have gone into Ainslie Bullion. I'm not sure whether it was Melbourne or Sydney office, but have gone in and asked if Ainslie are selling these, you know, with the Voice of Freedom Byron Bob pack. So they're not, unfortunately. But if you want one, you can email me, carl@vofhq.com. There's about $60 worth of silver in there, and I don't know how much worth of plastic, and an awful lot of postage. And we'll get it to you for $100. That's the price we're asking, carl@vofhq.com. I have a list, and when Vince has the appropriate amount of fillable holders, he's going to send them to me, probably the first 8 or 10 in one batch, and then I'll post all those out to you, which should be the way we go going forward. I'm trying to get to where is my, there it is. I knew I had a bit of paper around here somewhere, just in case you are interested, folks. Yeah, our new lottery is running, and 82 tickets have been sold currently. All right, so let's get into it. It's probably not a great time to be in Victoria at the moment, and thoughts are definitely going out to 2 families, possibly 3, who are mourning tonight the loss of a father or a brother or a son or a daughter, or I'm unsure of the sex of the 2 officers who were shot today in Porepunkah. Now, where the hell is Porepunkah, I hear you say? Well, Porepunkah is a little town right nestled at the bottom of Mount Buffalo in Victoria, in the Victorian Alps. It's very close to Bright. Porepunkah would be the place that many people will have stopped at to get their hired ski gear and chains so that they can get up to places like Mount Buffalo, or further up. If you're heading up to Falls Creek, you would also go through Porepunkah on the way up there. This map shows the Victorian police helicopter doing an awful lot of circle work around an area just outside of Porepunkah, and I believe that the gentleman that they've chosen to term a sovereign citizen has taken to the bush with his family, and they believe that he's now cordoned off in a certain area of bushland, and a siege-like mentality has fallen on the place. So I know nothing of the backstory to this. I've heard a couple of rumours. Mainstream media are very good at starting these rumours, and whether or not there's truth to them or not remains to be seen. Apparently, they're saying that there may be historical sexual abuse allegations involved, eerily similar to the trains in Queensland, I've got to say. The three people who were supposedly sovereign citizens, and that was the media reason, or part of the angst that the media put out at the time of their shootings. I think, was it one or two police and a citizen died there? Maybe it was just one police officer. No, I'm pretty sure it was two police and a local citizen, next door neighbour. I've actually heard stories tell that that the police shot that poor fella thinking that he was a bad guy, but I don't know that that's the truth, and it certainly wasn't borne out in any inquiry that was run by the police. So I don't know, but this is starting to smell of the same sorts of media story in the background. It's early days. Apparently this person is known to police. Well, what does that mean? Does it mean you're a criminal, or does it just mean that you're one of these blokes who walks around the street and doesn't acknowledge the police in a good way because of the treatment they've received in the last few years in Victoria, particularly? A lot of people, if you haven't been to Victoria and got to know some of the people who suffered through the Dan Andrews era, and particularly through the lockdowns and associated other coercion tactics that Dan Andrews and now Jacinta Allen are placing on their constituents, you really fail to understand the PTSD, the trauma that these people went through. And it's very genuine, very, very genuine. So for a variety of reasons, you find Victorians are much more outspoken, much more awake in the awakened groups, But then there are still pockets, and they are significant pockets, like basically draw a line up from the CBD or the northern end of Melbourne, the northern suburbs of Melbourne, draw a line up straight through Victoria up to the border, and anything to the left of that line is not terribly awake. There are movements, there are certain people, and I'm sure it's growing all the time, but by and large, you get looked at quite strangely when you pull up into those towns and you put a show on across the road from the local Masonic Lodge. They look at you in a whole different way sometimes. Mostly, though, those lodges are closed these days, which is something of interest I have noted. So, yeah, some interesting things going on in Victoria at the moment. We'll just have to wait and see how that plays out and pray for those people involved and for the recovery of those people who've been hurt in what's gone on today. I don't encourage violence in anything. It's just a short way to get yourself killed at the moment, and I wouldn't advise that. Think of your family, think of your wife, your husband, your son, your daughter, your grandchildren, before you go putting yourself at risk in any way like that, for sure. Speaking of putting themselves at risk, some interesting news today for Iran. They've been kicked out of Australia. Now, I heard about this within about 30 minutes of it happening. I heard about it before the news conference that Albo had, where he basically said that Tehran had sponsored at least two of the attacks, on one on a Jewish mosque and one on something else, a Melbourne attack and one somewhere else. That ASIO had basically determined that Iran was to blame for this, and that because of that reason, Iran's embassy here was being shut down, the ambassador being kicked out of the country, and he was given 30 minutes notice before Albanese went to a live press conference with it. And he and I think it was 3 or 4 other diplomats have been given 7 days to vacate the country. Will they be back? I don't know. These things normally blow over. Why all of a sudden is Albo throwing Iran out of the country and blaming, them hyping up anti-Semitism as the reason? Because there's significant doubt over who paid whom to do what exactly in both those particular quoted terrorist attacks. And for ASIO to say, well, it's ASIO's opinion without here is the evidence that ASIO has. And if this evidence is strong enough to get Iran kicked out of the country, why isn't it strong enough to show the Australian people? No, I think that Albo has felt a bit of pressure given his decision to come out and support the establishment of a two-state solution for Palestine and Israel in the face of Israel and the US. They are very pissed off that he's come out and done this. And he has sided with, I think it's 142 other countries around the world to do this. And effectively, well, I don't know what it effectively does, gives the Palestinians the right to live in the bomb craters that Israel has left behind. Because that's about all there is. Donald Trump wants to move them to somewhere beautiful and new. They'll be very happy. They'll be the happiest people on earth. It'll be beautiful. It'll be new. It'll be safe. It'll be nowhere near the Jewish people. Where's that going to be exactly? I haven't heard that part yet. And has it been built yet? I don't see any of the Trump aircraft shuffling people, out of the Gaza Strip to these salubrious new accommodations that are being promised. So I'm all a bit about all of that. There's some weird shit going on, and I think Albanese is just trying to appease Israel and America by kicking Iran out of Australia based on what ASIO assumes. Because, well, let's see the evidence. You don't have to show how you got the evidence. Don't have to tell us how you got it. Don't have to reveal sources and methods, as they say. But you can show the evidence, I would have thought, that requires us to kick Iran out of Australia, a country who, at least to my knowledge, isn't doing anything active here in Australia to subvert anything. I could be wrong, and that's why I'd like to see the proof. But they've also named the Iranian Republican Army a terror organization. So the Republican Guard, I guess, are now persona non grata as well. And if we've categorized them as a terrorist agency, does that mean that we have cells here in Australia of these people ready to, activate, so to speak? Don't know. Other interesting thing happened today with America. Well, more happened with Australia than America. Australia Post decided to stop delivering parcels and business post to America today. None of it went. None of it will go until further notice. Why is that? Well, it has a lot to do with the tariffs that have been introduced by Donald Trump. It seems that America wants these tariffs paid in full from the originating country before the mail turns up on the shores of the US. So for that to happen, that would mean Australia Post would need to pay it up front. For them to do it up front would mean you'd have to be charged for it up front. And you weren't charged for it up front, so they're not sending it. Does that make sense? I don't know how long this will go for. Nobody does. But if you are just sending documents or you're sending a letter to Auntie Flo, you're not going to have too many issues. It's more for business practices and I guess for things like online sales. If you're buying a genuine Akubra hat or you're buying genuine Australian rabbit skin whatevers, then you're going to get hit with some sort of a tax as it comes in. Birthday gifts are exempt, I think, up to the value of $100. But over and above that, so you can't send somebody that's, maybe needs a brand new TV. You can't send them a $2,000 new TV, for instance, because they'll get taxed on it or the money for it. So interesting times, and I guess we will find out what's more is in store for Australia. I believe just as we were going to air, the last half an hour before we were going to air, I didn't get off the phone. Had heaps of people ringing, but I saw an article come through that says Trump has thrown something else of a curveball at us here in Australia, but I don't know what that is just yet. Hopefully, it'll be something good for the rate of silver in the country and gold. Don't want to let the gold down, but I don't have much gold. Do have a little bit of silver, very tiny little bit, but very hopeful it can grow into something better. The RBA have been spruiking themselves up. They're crowing a little bit. They've let some notes out that say interest rates are going to keep falling for the rest of this year. Now, I don't know if there is one or two more planned interest rate drops for 2025. I would say there's two at least, maybe a third, if the RBA felt like it. The banks have been passing on not just the last interest rate drop. Some of those banks have gone even further, and I want to say the Commonwealth Bank has gone further than most, dropping one of their, I think it was variable rates, by another 0.45%. It wasn't until I actually compared that with the similar rate offered for a similar product through the other banks that they were still, 0.1 or 2% higher than the other banks. So be careful what you're getting when you go and look at those, particularly Combank, but any bank. Unless you're lucky enough to walk in and ask for one of those Jewish loans. If you can get one of those Jewish loans, that's not such a bad thing. Well, you don't have to pay it back. Well, you do kind of have to pay it back, but you've just got to go and help out a fellow Jew down the road with whatever. So that's how easy it is. Climate change, and it does seem to change, particularly if you're in what we're going to loosely term the federal coalition, are we? Is there a coalition there? I've got to wonder. Who's leading the Liberal Party there these days? A woman. Susan Ley. There's a forgettable leader if I've ever come across one, to be honest. Apparently, she's having to come out and play down the rift that seems to be going off in the party room, be that the Liberals and National Party room, because I think they got back into bed together. The problem that they have is that Barnaby Joyce, when he's not sucking on the end of a decent red wine, actually makes some sense with some of the arguments that he makes about climate change, and particularly the never-ending death spiral to net zero. It seems Barnaby and others may have had some influence because the party room is breaking down over its energy policy and, as I say, its relentless march towards net zero, which is obviously a UN-inspired agenda item, which Australia, it doesn't matter which side of politics, the uni party doesn't care who you vote for, because they don't work for you. They work for a whole different foreign corporation. Or that we've caught up on that, haven't we? We know how that works. So, interesting times with Susan Ley in the party room there and the split about net zero. I can only hope Matt Canavan has been able to introduce a bit of common sense in that market. I can only hope that it spreads in the Liberal Party. I doubt that it will, but can only hope the Conservatives can come to senses and stop trying to kowtow to the loony lobbyists who they seem to think represent Australia. They don't. They represent the corporate interests that they're lobbying for. And unfortunately, the brand of Australian politician that we're able to elect isn't smart enough to figure that out. You'd think we'd be smarter and elect better politicians, but that's a whole other story. It's probably unfair of me to marry these two things together. However, it's so hard to resist. The Australian National University, or better known as ANU, is currently undergoing a fairly deep regulator review, read deep scrutiny of its entire leadership and financial team and systems. And what this review, this regulator review, has said must be significant, because the leaders at the Australian National University have come out and said, and I quote, "There is much to do," when they were asked about some of the issues this review showed in leadership and finance areas of the Australian National University. There is much to do. Watch this space. You know who went and started working for the Australian National University not all that long ago, but he had to be laying some groundwork in there before he got the vice-chancellorship or whatever it is that he picked up? Bill Shorten. Just saying. Just saying. He managed to leave the NDIS after they'd given away and were told to give away, $1 million a day per office. Make sure everybody, don't say no to anything. Give that money out. That was under Bill Shorten's watch. Then he was going to set up the watchdog for the corruption and the lies that were being told inside the NDIS. And the NDIA watchdog was going to be all over that. And then he left. Disappeared like a rat up an aqueduct. Good old Bill. Not a big fan, but what can we say? Well, I think I've said not a big fan on more than one occasion, so we can probably stop saying that about now. What else has been going on in the wide world around us? Oh, ASIC have got a little bit engaged. Now, you might remember a couple of months ago, about a month ago, I had Cass Smith on from Freedom Financial Solutions. We were talking about self-managed super funds and how people said, you don't need to worry about big super. They're never going to crash. They're never going to go down. There's nothing that can harm big super. And then a super fund crashed. And somewhere along the line of, I think it was 6 million Australians, super was affected. Now, to what extent that has been affected, I'm not completely sure. Initially, no one was expected to get anything back out of their investment. I believe there was some kind of attempted offer, which would have been cents in the dollar back on your investment. I don't think that was accepted. So I haven't heard what else is going on, but it seems ASIC are not letting go of the sausage. They have sued Equity Trustees Super over their role in what they allege to be a $160 million investment scheme that looks like it might have a few curly edges around it. Super trusts, big super funds not going down? Well, it depends on who's running them and what they think they can get away with. And while certainly some of the biggest super funds might have more people running them and more people with oversight and less likely to rob you like outright, like in this fashion, however, they do rob you with their fees and charges. Because all of those people, all of that oversight, all of that everything requires payment. And you pay it out of your super. Pardon me. So self-managed super fund that night, we talked about how it couldn't crash, and we showed that it can. This is the same mob. And it goes to show that ASIC are very serious about what they've done, because they have sacrificed and put in jeopardy over 6 million Australian families and the super benefits that they were all expecting to enjoy. It can't happen if you are managing your own super fund, and it's not hard to do. Freedom Financial Solutions can sort you out with it. If you email me, I'll forward you on to Mary Jane, but Mary-Jane, I don't know. I better check her email. Just send it to me and I'll forward it, carl@vofhq.com, if you want to get into a self-managed super fund and find out just how easy it is, and invest in gold and silver, which will give you a much better return, in my opinion. It's only an opinion, but it's based on what I've seen in the last, let's just call it 6 months. If you heard last night, Cass said gold has gone up over 40% since January, and silver has gone up over 60% since January. So you show me a super fund that gives you that kind of return in 6 months. You show me any kind of bank that'll give you that kind of return in 6 months. And even if you pile it in today and it doesn't go up through the roof again between now and Christmas, but I suspect it will, even if it doesn't, you can be guaranteed that it will go up in the future, and it will outrank whatever pittance the banks decide they're going to give you for interest, and Big Super as well. So my advice, check it out, really consider it, and these things can happen quite rapidly. A self-managed super fund with the Freedom FFS team, well, I think they've average time is about 4 weeks, 4 to 5 weeks. So from go to woe, all the paperwork signed, sealed, delivered, and you get to go and pick up your gold, silver from wherever you'd like to go and pick it up from. I'd tell you to go to Ainslie, but you don't need to listen to me. You can go wherever the hell you like. Moving on, there is a new fear in our food production chain. Now, people in Tasmania will probably be aware of this, but people outside of it may not. Tasmania have had their second detection of what's called the mop top virus in their potato crop. Now, that's not a not a virus you would want in your potatoes if you are growing a crop. It tends to bugger up the end product, so to speak. What this means, though, is that the powers that be in Tasmania and I guess interstate have ordained that no potatoes, particularly sold for things like feed, or I beg your pardon, seed, will be allowed out of the state until they're sure that this mop top virus is contained. Now, believe it or not, Tasmania supplies a lot of the seed potatoes to many parts of Australia. Most of the producers of potatoes when I was a kid were farmers, like my uncle, down in the Koroit region of Victoria, where I used to spend my summers picking spuds and getting about 70 cents a bag if we were lucky. And when we gave up on that, it became more profitable to go and pick up bales of hay. But spuds in that part of the world were a huge business through the 60s, 70s, and the 80s to a point. Started dying off in the 80s. Now, I know that there are massive potato producers still, all working off pivots and whatnot through South Australia and Victoria, down along the border there. In fact, we spent some time on one of those pivot farms that was indeed growing spuds. Now, I'm not sure where those big organisations get their seed potato from, but I do know a lot of it comes out of Tasmania for different parts of Australia. Now, maybe some of these big producers are keeping a certain amount of their own product, as my uncle used to do, for seed, but for the next crop. But many of these big producers get paid very, very well for their quality production, and it goes all around Australia, all over the world. So I don't know. We may well see a bit of a rush on potatoes in the not too distant future. If we can't get enough seed to grow enough on the mainland, it's going to get ugly, people. It's going to get ugly. Speaking of Tasmania, people in Tasmania, I don't know how familiar you are and how much work has been put into AI in Tasmania, but I suspect quite a lot. And if you're in Hobart, you're about to get a lot more. They're going to use AI to crack down on unpermitted short stay rentals. Unpermitted, this is the language they're using, unpermitted short stay rentals. Could that be they're going to use AI to figure out whether you have a friend staying in your spare bedroom for a day, a week, a month? Because we know the plans for your spare bedroom. They've been pretty well advertised in the last few days. So why would they phrase it that particular way? They're going to deploy AI in Hobart to crack down on unpermitted short stay rentals. So an unpermitted short stay rental would be somebody coming to stay at your place, wouldn't it? Because a permitted short stay rental would be something like a B&B, Airbnb, or whatever. I'm a little confused. If you're in Hobart and would like to try and explain that to me, I'm all ears, because employing AI to figure out who's living where, I think, is a new and interesting turn we should be very careful of, and keep a very, very fast eye. The ABC is reporting fast-tracked housing approval is expected to double in regional towns in the next 2 years. That means towns' populations are likely to double in certain areas, some towns. That would be if you can get the people who are coming in from overseas and coming into these universities, predominantly along the East Coast. That is, if you can get them to stay in those regional university towns or go further afield once they've finished their education. And of course, we are finding, like most people who come to a Christian Western democracy, when they get here, they can make choices of their own, and it really doesn't matter what the rest of us think. While we might wish and hope for them to go and live in Tara or, Quilpie, only another 22 residents, Quilpie will qualify for an IGA supermarket. It's worth doing. I'm being facetious there. Quilpie may already have an IGA supermarket, but you get the idea. How are you going to convince these people to go and live out in the regional areas when the infrastructure isn't there for them to begin with? The housing infrastructure certainly isn't there, although they're planning on doubling housing approvals. That means they're going to start injecting made-up money. They're going to just start printing money for these people, ushering it all through. Or are these things going to be paid for in gold and silver? I certainly know a few builders who would happily build you a house for gold and silver if that's the way you'd like to play it. Let me know. And no, I don't get a slice. I guess in government, stupid things happen all the time, but the Northern Territory have at times excelled. And while I haven't looked at the NT Times to see what headline they've come up with for this latest debacle, I bet it's a ripper. The Northern Territory Department of Infrastructure. Now, you know what Department of Infrastructure is all about? They're the people who look after everything to do with roads and planning and pipes and wires and where everything goes and all that kind of thing. They've been fined for destroying a sacred tree during roadworks. Now, I believe the mines have got to have somebody on site whenever a shovel is picked up and a new bit of dirt is dug to make sure that that bit of dirt is okay with everybody to be dug up. How is it that the Northern Territory Department of Infrastructure, who probably has 25 of those people sitting on every road crew, missed the sacred tree? And they've been fined. Who do they pay exactly? The Northern Territory Department of Infrastructure. Do they pay the Northern Territory Department of Fines? Robbing Peter to pay Paul? I don't know. Very, very weird indeed. A couple of other weird little things that seem to be playing out at the moment. There seems to be some stories appearing in media, and I've had some personal experience with folks in the last 2 days just on personal finance issues, and some of those issues relating to what happens after these people pass away. Now, many people have a lot of concerns that Australia still lacks certain binding laws and restrictions when it comes to inheritance and who inherits what, how you inherit things, particularly like maybe superannuation that can be accessed. So we spoke briefly with Cass and Mary Jane about this too the other day, but it's coming back into my life repeatedly for a reason, and it's coming from different sources. So I'm figuring I'm meant to be talking about this again. Estate planning is something of people of my age, our age, of any age, really, you should be all over. And a few weeks ago, a month ago, we had a conversation about bloodline inheritance. Now, that's not about excluding people of impure blood. What it is about doing is securing your wealth and making sure that it goes to the people you want it to, should something adverse happen to you before you reach a ripe old age, or indeed you manage to get to a ripe old age, and whatever's left is going to go where you want it to go, not be swept up by the government, shoveled up by greedy relatives, or dispersed into weird general revenue accounts owned by the government. So Mary Jane and Cass have a business that can help you with that in a significant way. And if you would like more information, then I can pass along your details to Mary Jane or Cass, and they will give you a good outline. It starts in part with a will, but there is more to it than that, much more to it. And as you will hear from them, you need to use the correct language. You need to write these things in the correct way so that when you pass, your family doesn't have to argue about what your intentions truly were. And that can only be a good thing, I would have thought. Tomorrow, now, we are going to have a bit of a chat tomorrow morning. I'm not sure exactly what time. I would say it'll be about 7:30 tomorrow morning, but I'll be speaking with Michael Offey in Canberra after day 2 today of Paul's Supreme Court trial. Now, I've had a little bit of an update. I'm sure Michael will tell us some things within reason. Being an active case, I guess we have to be reasonably careful about what we can and can't say. What I can tell you today, so far as I understand it, there was some evidence presented from the prosecution that could have been better presented, let's put it that way. There were some cross-examinations done by Paul, and while it is a tricky and laborious process, Paul is getting it done and doing a great job from all accounts. While there might be a number of people in the court who are finding his presentation style slow and tedious, it is all of those things, but it is also quite meticulous. Paul is fighting for his life here. Some of the charges, well, the sum of the charges that they've got him up on add up to 40 years in jail. 40 friggin' years. Now, these charges are just so trumped up. You would think he was in, 18th gear, ploughing through 500 policemen as they bounced off his bonnet. But I won't say anything further. That wasn't the case. But if you would like to go in and hear more, particularly his defence, that there's half a chance we might see the defence start tomorrow or possibly the next day. And there are a number of witnesses who are lining up to come to Canberra and testify on Paul's behalf. There is also significant amounts of vision and audio that will be played. And it's nice to see that there are a number of people in the court helping him, supporting him, but it would be wonderful if we could get a few more people there. Now, I know this is probably a bit of an ask, but if you are within a bull's roar of Canberra and you can possibly be there for Paul and the team tomorrow or particularly Friday, the boys will be there all weekend, of course, and going back again on Monday. But if you felt the urge to come down and support the Canberra crew, maybe spend Friday at the Supreme Court, and it'll be a short day at the court. It's a Friday. They've all got beers to drink and golf to play. And I mean the judges and the prosecutors, not the Offey boys. But it'll be a relatively short day, I would suspect. But it would be wonderful to see a great crowd at the ACT Supreme Court to give the boys a bit of a lift into the weekend. And probably by Friday, I would say, if it doesn't happen tomorrow, then I'd say by Friday we'll definitely be into the defence portion of the hearing or the trial, where Paul will be able to present his evidence in support of his position. And hopefully the jury will see, at least on the charges that the jury are allowed to see, that there is no case to answer. then, of course, it moves on to the portion of the trial where the judge gets to say and do whatever he likes. We've already ascertained that there are certainly grounds for appeal from some of the decisions this particular judge may have already made. So that's been flagged. It'll be interesting to see how the rest of it plays out over the coming days and weeks. But the big thing is, if you can get to Canberra for, well, let's call it Friday morning, if you feel the urge to stay, that would be wonderful. And then catch up with the Canberra crew at the Governor-General's 10 o'clock on Saturday morning, maybe Sunday morning as well, and hang around for Monday morning and the fireworks in the court, which I promise you will be very entertaining. Love to see as many people there as we can possibly get. So go along and help Paul Offey and do what we can to keep him out of jail. It's nice to see Michael Gray-Griffith is actually in Canberra and in court, has been for both days so far. So it's great to see Michael getting behind it. He's also been responsible, of course, for helping Paul along the way and trying to raise funds. I think we've all had a go at trying to help Paul in some way, shape or form across the last 3 years. And we all, I don't mean just people like Michael or myself, we all, I mean, you and I, we all have a vested interest in making sure this young man isn't railroaded and isn't sent to jail for any period of time, much less 40 years. And for those of you who've had the pleasure of meeting him, you'll know that what a genuine and nice young man that he is. Doesn't have a angry bone in his body or a bad bone in his body. And if anybody has the right to be angry and mad about a lot of things, it's Paul. You know, he's had a lot of bad shit happen to him in his life, from being bashed on the street to a brain injury, from having a truck tire blow up in his face that gave him another brain injury, and then being involved in a car accident that gave him another brain injury. On top of all of that, he has to deal with this shit. So keep him in your prayers, folks. Pray for a righteous outcome for all of his charges at the ACT Supreme Court. And better still, if you can deliver them in person, he'd love to see you, as would Michael and somebody I'll call the rest of the team. We're not naming him for a number of reasons. Would love to see you on Friday or Monday and across the weekend if you can make it. They'd love to see a friendly face. I'm going to love you and leave you tonight. We will be back, as I say, tomorrow morning, and I'll have Michael on the horn then. We'll get a bit of an update on how things have gone today and what we're hoping to achieve over the next couple of days. So that'll in part be happening tomorrow morning, I'm guessing somewhere around 7:30. And until then, I hope you have a bloody good night. Don't go out on the roads and do anything I wouldn't do. Congratulations again to our lotto or lottery winners. M, who picked up $750. I'm not sure I'm not allowed to say their names, so that's why I'm using initials. M from Victoria, and there's probably plenty of M's saying, oh, gee, I haven't got that email. You will have got an email if you are the M I'm referring to. And K from West Tasmania picked up the gold. So congratulations. I hope you can put them to good use and stay off the roads, folks. There are plenty of dickheads out there, and none of them seem to be improving their driving standards one iota.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's ride!